Hello peeps, what's up? Alright. Got a few comments from the last video, which was discussion on 5-liter twins, the old man versus the new man, the modular versus the pushrod engine. That was good. It's good. Keep that going as far as the comments go. Now, granted, this ain't gonna be all about Ford products. I like Ford products, but let's be realistic. In a world where there's more than Ford products, and I like Ford products, but this ain't a Ford channel. That's not what this is. This is gonna be a channel where we can discuss any products. Now, granted, I don't own any Dodge products. I don't think I know anybody that owns any, and I do, but I haven't seen his stuff up close. So he knows who he is, and maybe one day we'll get together and I'll get a good look at that truck that he's got that motor in, and it's impressive. That's another story. But let's see what tonight's topic is. How about this? So I'm wrangling between two topics of built versus bought. Now, there's a dude that he was in some turmoil with Ford about the title of his channel, and so he ended up changing it to built versus bought. And I get it, that's great. And then he was like mostly Fox bodies. Well, he changed that to just about anything now. So now it's just, he's not just focusing on the Fox body thing. And you got all kinds of dudes doing that, and that's not what this is either. So built versus bought. The other question is, do you work on your own car, or does somebody else work on it? Do you work on your own car? That's what this one is. So I can scratch that one off the list. All right. Today's topic is, do you work on your own car? Now, the reason why I said that is because when I first started in the Fox body, my first Mustang, there was already a lot of guys around here that had Mustangs, and what it seemed to me that they worked on their own cars. See, I don't know. I never knew anybody who didn't work on their own car, or at least I didn't think they did. I just assumed that if he's driving a bad car, he worked on it himself. This isn't the case. Now, there have been one or two times I actually let somebody else work on my car, and that was when I was in between cars and I needed to get my car finished, and I didn't have any tools, and I didn't have anywhere to work on the car at, so I had to take it to somebody else to get it running. I got it to a certain point, and then I had to move, and so I had to move the car, and it wasn't running, so then I had to take it to somebody to get them to get it to the point where it ran. So that was that. Other than that, nobody's ever worked on my car except me. Now, these fellows that I thought worked on their own cars, no need to mention any names because half of them don't even own those cars anymore. I haven't seen those fellows in at least 20 years. They're probably not even in the hobby anymore. So the question would be why you would let somebody else work on your car. One, here's a prime example. Now, you would think a guy who works on his own car, and he's a Mustang guy, We'll just call him a Mustang guy because, you know, that's what they do. If you're a Camaro guy, you're a Chevy guy. You own Chevy products, you're a Chevy guy. You know stuff about Chevrolets that you can rattle off. Somebody asks you a question, oh yeah, you know this, that, and other about a Chevrolet. Same thing with Dodge, or same thing with a Ford. Depending on what product you're into, it's not going to be all Fords, but if particularly you're into one product and you've worked on that product more than any other, you should be able to answer somebody's question if they ask. And you've either ever ran into that problem or you've not, then you don't have the answer to it. But here's what happened. So I had changed the plugs on my first Fox body. It was a 1989 Florida State Trooper car. It's 5-speed. There was mystery around this car as to who owned it, and they did figure out who owned it, and the car ran like the devil. That's all I can say. It ran like a Scottish dog. I don't know what was done to it. Some people said it was done, had head work done to it. You just really don't know, you know. And back then, I was new to it. So my dad was a Chevy guy. So the car I had before that car was a 1971 SS Nova with a 350 in it with a gear drive in it. Now, granted, the Nova was fairly stock. It had a decent little cam in it. You know, for the 350, it was a mild engine. It ran pretty good. It was a good car to cruise around, and it had some decent tires on it. I painted it. I took it to auto body school and did some work on it, and blah, 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 blah. And my second hot rod attempt was I wanted a Mustang. So that was the first Mustang I had. It was the 89 5-liter 5-speed Florida State Trooper car. So I started to working on the car. You know, had a good buddy, Nate, came over, helped me put a timing chain in it. You know, we timed it, got it running. I changed some other things in it. And I said, well, you know, I'll put some plugs in it myself. And I mixed up the plug wires. Okay, well, being my dad was a Chevy guy, I wasn't really privy to Ford's firing order. As simple as it is, and I didn't know this because I had a manual. In fact, I still got that manual. Hold on. You know anything about 5 liters, you got one of these. And you can tell how old it is because look, the pages are brown. Yeah, this thing's probably about, what year was that? 2007, 8, somewhere in there. Anyway, I bought a manual. Well, you know, I'm reading it, and I get to the page where I think I'm putting the plug wires on. All right. So, as a fellow, he's got a hatch car. It's green. Supercharged. Okay, he's always bragging about this car when this car's badass. I assumed he worked on his own car. He pulls up next to me. I'm in the parking lot. At this point, I had worked at AutoZone, and I drove it to work, and it was missing. I couldn't figure out what I had done wrong. And I was one wire off. I had one wire wrong. And so I was trying to compare mine to his. He popped the hood, and I'm like, what's the firing order, man? You know, what? Help me out here. I'm still learning. This is a learning experience for me. So, you know, all his stuff was covered up. So I really couldn't tell, but I figured if I just asked him and he walked over and looked at what I had, that he could just, oh, this one's wrong, and just fix it. Just, whoop, there you go. You good. You had one off. He couldn't do it. He couldn't do it. That got to me. That bothered me. I was like, man, you bragging about your car. It's supercharged, got all this. You just woo list of stuff. And you don't even know how to, you can't even tell me which plug. You know what happened? I took them all off, went back to the book, and I had the book in the car. And I just took my time. I must have been in a hurry when I did it. And I went back through them, and I got them all right. And when I fired it up, it ran like a kitten. It was perfect. From then on, that let me know he ain't work on his own car. And anytime I saw him, and he's always bragging about something he had done. Now, he didn't say he did it. He just say, we. Well, we did this and we did that. I'm like, who is we? Who is we? So if I'm ever telling you that I put a cam in it, that means I did it. I went out there, broke it down, pulled the old one out, put a new one in, put it back together. All by myself, just me. There was no we, because over here it's just me. Now granted, I've got two Curtises over here, which is my son Curtis and my grandson Curtis, and they'll come over here every once in a while, and I had them help me get the motor out of the garage and get it in at 65, but most of the stuff that I've done, it's all me. There is no we. Now, granted, if I can get them involved, that'd be great. Then I can say, we did this. We put this together. We tooled this out and we took it apart and we put it back together and it ran and blah, blah, blah. And we did this. That was we. But to find out that a car guy, I thought he was, solid as far as his knowledge. He didn't know nothing. He didn't work on his own car. He lost a little clout with me. Because if I'm still learning, how are you going to tell me anything if you don't know? If you don't work on your own car, how can I ask you any questions? So, basically, being that at the time where I lived, there was a Mustang shop down the street. And I would go down there a lot because I could walk down there. It was like my house was up the street and it was on the corner. I could walk down there and just talk to the dudes in there. And then, you'd have any number of cars pulling up and they worked on people's cars. That's what they did because people paid. If you wasn't the type of guy that built a motor, then they would build your motor, put it in your car, and they would take it out there on the street and you'd hear them out there letting it go. And that was big to me. I was into that. That was what I was into. I'm still into it. You don't see that too much anymore because it's just, that time has passed, I guess. But at the time, I looked for people who knew more than me. You think that, I go down there and the guy building the engines, he would talk to me. In fact, he's a world-class engine builder. So, and he didn't hesitate. I mean, I didn't own a Mustang at the time, but just listening to him talk, and I bought the magazines. I had magazines from when Fast Fords and Mustangs and started out. I had magazines. I bought them. I didn't even own a car, but I liked the cars. I wanted one. I liked the way they sounded, so I bought the magazines. I read up on them and that kind of thing. But to actually have a car and then start working on it and then think that other guys work on their own car, which I met some guys that do work on their own cars, that did, but then I met some that didn't, and I didn't figure that out until talking to them. I'm asking certain questions because I'm a hands-on kind of person. I'm going out there and I'm taking it apart. Whereas I ask questions after I done took it apart. And so if you've taken it apart, you should have those answers because you've done the same thing. All I'm doing is asking you what you did when you took it apart. Well, they didn't have the answers. They relay it to somebody else. Oh, well, I didn't take it apart. He took it apart. Or he built the engine, or he worked on my car. I don't work on it. I just drive it. Oh, okay. Now I know. So, question is, do you work on your own car? You think it's okay to pay somebody else to work on your car that you don't even know what's going on? I mean, granted, I get it. You can make a parts list or you can get together with the person that's working on your car and say, okay, this is what I want to do. And I've been to shops here recently. I took a guy's Camaro over to a shop, and he don't work on cars. Now, the car he owns, he bought it. He bought it that way. It was a Chevrolet product. It was a 70 model Camaro. Had a 500 and some cubic inch motor in it. It's built. Had a automatic transmission in it. Well, the transmission went out. So I went over there and got his car and took it over to the shop. Well, he wants to do some different things to it. Now, he didn't work on cars. He's a musician. So I get that. That makes sense. He loves the car. He bought it. He loves driving it, and he does drive it. I've seen him out around town, and he's all in it. I mean, I can't blame him. But he wants to change some things. So he's telling me about it, and I'm like, okay, I see what you're saying. He's like, I think I want to change the cam, but he doesn't know anything about it. He wants to change it. I guess he wants a different sound. I don't know what he's looking for. So he's telling the guy at the shop, because I'm standing there with him when I unloaded his car. Eventually I want to change the cam in it. And then the guy at the shop is saying, well, I think it's got good drivability the way it is. I probably wouldn't change it. I mean, you probably could do a little adjustment on the carburetor if you're just trying to, what kind of power are you trying to get? He's like, well, I'm thinking maybe 600. He said, well, what do you think it's making now? I mean, he's running a big block. I mean, it's built already. I mean, everything on it is new. He popped the hood. I mean, it's somebody put some money in this thing. I mean, you look up under, it's got cow tracks under it. I mean, if he was going to race, just to go to the track and have some fun with it, it's very capable. But he didn't. That's another thing. You know, you got to know people who aren't going to just waste your money and waste your time. Which he told that guy, I don't think you ought to touch it. I think you ought to leave it the way it is. He said, now granted, later on, you know, we can look into it and see if we can get it on the dyno and see what it makes. And if you want to make a little bit more power, we can see if we can get a cam that'll get you there, maybe a little head work or something. But I really don't think you ought to touch it. I think you ought to just put the transmission in it and go on. Understandable. He's not a mechanical guy. He probably could change the oil in it. That's probably about it. He don't know anything about valve lash and you know, adjusting the jets in the carburetor or anything like that. And you wouldn't expect him to. He's a musician. But my problem is with these dudes that go to shows or show up, you know, out and you're racing or whatever, or you're out in the cut and everybody's running their mouth about what they got, and he don't even work on his car. Somebody else works on his car. You have zero clout with me if you don't work on your own car. And I know a guy, he would buy a car. There ain't nothing wrong with that. You want to buy one that's already done? That's great. That's great. If somebody asks you a question, hey, I don't know. I bought it just like this. Case closed. Okay, I ain't gonna ask you no more questions. On to the next guy. Because you're just driving it. You don't even know what's in it, aside from what you've been told. And there's nothing wrong with that. Technically, I like to be able to talk to somebody if we got similar projects and pick their brain. If you don't work on your own car, I can't pick your brain. You can't pick mine. You can pick mine, and I'm telling you all this stuff, but how do I know you're even paying attention? Are you even getting what I'm saying? I'm laying it out and you're just shaking your head, but you don't have any grease on your hands. No busted knuckles. You're not doing that. You just, well, it's broke. Have it towed over here and tell them to fix it. You're one of those people. I'm just saying, I'm not that guy. I don't even buy a new car. I buy an old car specifically because I have certain tastes and I like it my way. So I'd rather buy one that's unfinished or buy one that's not running. Make it run, do what I'm gonna do to it, then it's mine. I put my wheels on it, I lower it, I put an engine in it or whatever I'm gonna do with it, and it's mine. Somebody asks me something, I got details because I'm the one that built that car. It's like my son's car. Somebody asked him, the first thing he says is, "Oh, I didn't build this car. Pop built this car. It wasn't me. He gave it to me and I just drive it." And I'm like, that's understandable. Well, we'll get you there, and we'll get you down here, and we'll get you working on something, and then one day you buy one on your own, and you still have the one I gave you, and we'll start working on it. And then when somebody asks you, you can say, "Yeah, I built that car. Me and Pop built it. Me and Pop worked on it. Me and him put the motor together." And see, a lot of people do that. They say, "Well, father and son project." They work on the car together. They put it together, and one's not taking any glory away from the other one by saying, "Well, I did this and I did most of this and he did a little bit." No, it's we worked on it together and we finished it, and this is our project. We finished it. This is our car. As far as the letting other people touch my car, I really don't trust anybody else to work on my car. If I did let somebody work on my car, I can tell you who it would be, and they already know who they are. And it's probably two people. Two people I let touch my car. If that was a necessary thing. Other than that, I'd be dead before anybody else touched my car, and I wouldn't know it. But I don't really trust people to work on my cars because I don't know what their proclivities are. See, you got a lot of jealousy around, and see, you don't know who's jealous of you until you let them work on your car. You know, you let people build a motor for you, and then it blows up. If it blows up, that tells you that they didn't want your car on the road. They were jealous of you or something. They did something to it. They sabotaged it. And you can't tell me a person that has 40 years experience building engines can't build one that doesn't blow up. I'm just saying. So, yeah, you gotta be mindful of who works on your car. I tell these new people, these new kids, these young kids, learn to work on your own car. Don't get a car you can't fix. You think you wanna get into Japanese cars? Okay. Strap in, buddy. It ain't like working on something from the 60s. You're gonna have to shell out some cash, because you know the Japanese cars, they ain't cheap to work on. But in this day and age, nothing is. It's all pretty comparable. Whether you got a Japanese car or an American car, they're all performance parts are high. So you ain't gonna win. And that stuff from Japan, you know. And I ain't a Japanese car guy, but I know some, and that stuff ain't cheap. That JDM stuff, it ain't cheap. But race stuff ain't cheap neither. I mean, not necessarily race stuff, but performance parts. You know, cams and heads. And you ain't necessarily got to go racing, but you know, you wanna build your little hot engine to go in your car, whatever you're building. It ain't gonna be cheap. Rocker arms ain't cheap. Cams ain't cheap. If you got more than one cam, you know, if you're into that new age stuff, it's, you know, you really gonna pay. You know, I think that in the end, it really doesn't matter if you want to buy that stuff, and your pocket is big enough, and that's what you want to do. By all means, I think that I like to minimize myself. I think you can have a good time, you know, just building something that you can just ride around in. It can sound fast. It may be fast enough for you. It ain't no 8-mile murderer, you know, but you can have fun in it. And you used your own hands to build it. That's just my opinion. You want to let other people work on your car, that's you. I personally do not let other people work on my car. Now, if it's something I don't know how to do, now if I'm going to get a cage welded in, I'm not a welder. That's a different story. That's not in my skill set. I got a welder. I haven't used it a whole lot. I guess if I played around with it more, maybe I could get better at it, but I know I'm not good at it, so I'm not finna do that. If I was gonna get a cage put in my car, I'd take it to somebody that's what they do all day long. That's the difference. But that's not working on my car. That's them doing a specific thing that I want done to my car that I can't do. I'm talking about if I'm gonna put some brakes on my car, if I'm gonna change the oil, if I'm gonna put a water pump on it, even just the little things, do it yourself. Learn to do it yourself. That's the joy of car ownership. And I'm going to talk about just your regular run-of-the-mill grocery getter commuter car, your Honda Civic and your Buick Enclave or whatever. You know what? Those cars don't count. And you take that to somebody all day because that's probably going to be a headache. But if you got an old car, learn to work on your own car. Learn to do your own work. That's where the enjoyment's going to come in. Don't always take it to somebody else, somebody working on it. Then you're not learning nothing. You should know your car from front to back. That's just me. That's the way I think. Somebody asked me about my car, I can tell you everything about it. I've replaced just about everything on it I can think of. If I wanted it to be up to par, if I wanted to upgrade something, then I change it myself. If I want drilled and slided rotors, I replace all of them. New brake pads, and if I want to replace the sway bars and strut tower braces in it and all that crap, and just start adding things to it, which is what I've done to Vanilla. I've added things to it, but I put that car together so I can tell you everything about it. So if I pull up, pop the hood, and open the doors, you start asking questions, I got answers. That's just the way I see it. Now, you might think that it's okay to let other people touch your car. I feel like you touching my car is like touching my woman. That ain't happening. That ain't happening either. So, yeah, that's not, that's just me. But anyway, that's how I got to that conclusion. I talked to people and found that a lot of them don't work on their own car, and they're okay with that. I think it's kind of lame because I can't really talk to you about it because you don't work on your own car, so we're not the same. I know what I know, and you don't know anything because somebody else is working on your ride. My advice to you is learn to work on your own car. Be proficient in working on your own ride. You don't know something, go ask somebody. There's plenty of dudes that's what they do. They do the same thing. You can learn from them by going and asking. There's books. I mean, look. I found this book my pop had. Repair Your Car. They used to actually make those types of books in the 60s and 70s and 80s, and they taught you how to work on your own vehicle, even if it was just minimal things. This one's even got how to tune a quadrijet. I mean, come on, man. You just be susceptible to learning. Don't be lazy. Fix your own car. That's my take on it. You got guys that just don't want to learn. They just rather just pay somebody and enjoy the benefits of somebody else working on it. But you don't know what people have done. You don't know what they're charging you. That's another discussion. But I'll wrap this one up by saying, you know what? I work on my own ride. I think you should work on your own ride. It's just an advice thing. So, as usual, keep it between the dishes. I'll catch y'all later. And be sure to leave a comment if you think it's imperative that you learn to work on your own ride, and it better equips you to know what's going on with your car. Leave a comment. I'll comment back, and we'll just get some comments going in the comment section. Try to get some feedback going in the car guy world. So, yeah, I think my next topic will probably be the built versus bought. this will tie into this conversation of letting other people work on your car. Then this will lead over into built versus bought. So I'll catch y'all on the flip side. Keep between the ditches. I'll see y'all on the road.